Okay, so on angles, one way you can think of angles is it's two rays. If we just look at an angle like this, it's two rays put together, and they have a common endpoint. Let's say this is ray AB. This is ray. This would be ray AC. So sometimes we can name the angles here by using those letters. So we can call that one angle BAC. Put the vertex here in the middle. And sometimes they just give it maybe just give it a letter name, angle A. Could do it that way too, but yeah. So the way we measure angles is, of course, with there's a couple ways, but the way we're going to talk about it is with degrees, and what you need to know there is, of course, that if you go a full revolution around a full circle, there's a total of 360 degrees. If you go a halfway around, that's, of course, half of the 360, 180. That's called the straight angle. Quarter way around, usually denoted that way. That's our 90 degrees or right angle. All right, then we can have between those, I guess, between the 90 and 180. Obtuse, and then between 0 and 90 is acute. I'm sure you've heard those terms before, but just reiterating them a little bit. Okay. Now, the other term, a couple other terms, but if I have two intersecting lines, of course that sets up different angles, but let's call them A, B, C, and D. But it sets up one type of angles that those set up are these vertical angles. And vertical angles, when you have intersecting lines, the vertical angles are the angles that are across from one another. So angle A and C are vertical angles, and angle B and D are vertical angles. They're straight across from one another. And then the nice thing about the vertical angles is they're equal to one another. Angle A and angle C are equal, and angle B and angle D are equal. So vertical angles are always equal to their counterpart there. Now it also sets up a couple other types of angles, and those are another term here is supplementary. Supplementary angles those are angles whose sum is 1/8. In other words, they form, if you put them together, they form a straight angle. And so I have quite a few supplementary angles here. One example in my diagram there would be angle A and D, right? Angle A combined with angle D, those would be 180 because they make a straight angle there. So angle A and angle D. Are supplementary. So they add up to be 180. Now this, let's just give them some numbers here. All right, so let's say we've got angle A. Angle A, we're going to say is 20 degrees. Well, from that one given bit of information then, we should be able to figure out the rest of them. For example, what's angle C?
20.
It would also be 20 because those two are equal. But then, from the very fact we just mentioned there, we can get angle D, because angle D with angle A has to be 180, right? And so angle D would have to be 160.
Mm-hmm.
Subtract 180 minus 20. It's angle B would have to be 160 as well, because it's vertical to angle D, so they're equal, supplementary, different ways to get that one. So, all right, now the other problem here. Oh, one other term. Is that all right? Any questions about that? Probably terms you've heard before. Just making sure you got those terms. The other term here is complementary angles, and complementary, a little different than supplementary. Complementary angles are angles whose sum is 90. So they form to be a right angle there. All right. So those are the terms as far as angles go I wanted to mention. Now, this also brings up one of the few times we'll talk a little bit about algebra problems, solving an algebra type problem. But yeah, these give you some in your homework here that involve a little bit of algebra, not too much. All right, so let's say we've got again two intersecting lines. All right, so this angle right here is x plus 20 degrees, and then this angle over here is 3x minus 30 degrees. And so the instructions will be find the measure of each marked angle by the measure of each marked angle. All right, so yeah, it turns into, like I said, it's usually a pretty easy algebra problem here, because we've got here, what have we got? Vertical. These angles are vertical, and we know that vertical angles, how are they related?
The same.
They're equal. So yeah, this is our little problem here. We've got these two are vertical, then they must be equal. So you just set those two angles equal. Sets up usually fairly simple little algebra problem. Here's the way I usually go about this. We need the x's on one side, the constants on the other. So here's the way I usually denote it. You don't have to necessarily show it exactly like this, but so I need the x's on one side, so I'm going to subtract x both sides. I need those constants, the non-x's on the other side, so I'm going to add 30 here. That'll get rid of the 30. That'll be 0, and x, that'll be 0. Yeah. 3x minus x, or that's 1x, so that's 2x. And then 20 plus 30, that's 50. And then just have to divide by 2. That gives me x equals 25. That's not the answer though. The answer is the measure of each marked angle. So I just have to plug in the x to be 25. So I've got x plus 20. So if x is 25, and now I know that's 45. And of course, if this worked, 3x minus 30. If I plug in the 25 there, so hopefully I get the 45. 3 times 25, 75, minus 30, 45. So like I said, it's a little, sets up a little simple algebra problem. If you need some help on those, just let me know. All right, one more of those here. Okay, so let's say we've got a right angle there, x, and we got 3x, so that's x degrees, and this is 3x plus 10 degrees. Are those two equal? I don't know. That's not what I'm going to use here, because in this case, these angles are complementary, or another way to put that is these add up to be 90, don't they? And so that's our equation here. We're going to add these two, x plus the 3x plus 10, and those equal 90. And so that's another variation we could have here. Yeah, the two angles add up to be 90. Of course, the other one don't have one of those, but they could add up to be 180 too if they're straight. All right. Yeah, so in this case, we'd add the x plus the 3x, 1x plus 3x, 4x plus 10 equals 90. Again, though, I want the x's on one side, constants on the other, so I'm going to subtract the 10. And so that's 4x, gets rid of that, equals 80. And then divide off the 4, got the x is 20, which is one of the angles, but the other angle is 3x plus 10. And so since the x is 20, 3 times 20 plus 10, that's 7. 20 and 7. All right. So like I said, the other variation on that is if they add up to be 180.